To live heaven on earth, Kornelia teaches listeners how to be the authority over yourself, embracing your inner guru. Feel yourself uplifted into limitless expansion, integrating ease and grace in a changing world. This show will cover topics such as unconditional love, your physical body, how to be in extraordinary relationships, create financial and emotional wealth, embracing entrepreneurship in the new earth. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kornelia Stephanie Show. I'm with my beautiful cohort, Kerri Hummingbird. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's great. What a day.
Absolutely. Every day these days.
Every day these days, it's an interesting time to be here. Very exciting time to be alive and trust.
Exactly. Yeah, we are definitely walking the line of discernment.
Yeah. So you and I are both ascension guides. We're both teaching, walking the talk, being the new earth examples, the ambassadors, you could say, because that's who we are. And we're paving the path. We're leading the way, and not from a place of all knowing, but from a place of, I have no idea what's next.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. We got to be in the flow and that moment by moment discernment and listening.
Yeah. It's so funny. When I was getting ready for the show today, that's exactly what I wrote. Where is it? In the flow.
In the flow.
In the flow. In the flow. That's the energy we need to embody now, right? Is that being in the flow. And how do you be in the flow? How does one experience that reality, right? How does one? Well, normally it's from the contrast of, pushing the river and trying to, make plans, and that has to all work out according to the plan. And, the heart integrity has a whole different energy. And so we are in the flow by flowing with whatever is next, making the plan, but being willing to change the plan.
Absolutely. Being in the flow is it's kind of like allowing things to unfold as they need to unfold. And it's a lot less about what you think is going to happen and more about being present with what is happening. And I feel like it's a constant act of discernment to also be aware of what the mind wants to do, because the mind wants to put lots of stories to just about everything that's going on out there. And the mind loves to just put things in boxes. It likes to say, okay, this thing goes in that box. This thing or this person goes in that box. This thing goes over here in this box. And then once it puts it in the box, it wants to like set it and forget it. And like, okay, I never want to revisit that again. I've already made up my mind about that. It goes, that went in that box. But what's happening is that we're getting deboxed. There's no permanent box. And the more you try to put things in boxes, the more they're going to fly right out of that box.
I think that's a masculine energy. I think somebody told me a story once, because you're bringing this back by talking to me about it now. But I think somebody told me a story once where they said, men like to put things in boxes.
Well, it's an easier way, right? Like if something's in its box, you know where you left it and you know what you thought about it. You already analyzed it. And so you already know what you think about that. So you don't have to think anymore. I mean, it's really the end goal of putting things in boxes is less thinking. But there's actually another way to have less thinking.
And how is that?
The being in the flow.
Yeah.
And being with your heart. Like your heart wisdom is guiding you constantly. Yeah. And the whole thing is like that opens things up for learning. I mean, when we don't have to know, like when we don't have to think we're right, that's where the right and the wrong game comes in. And it's just a lot of people wrapped up in that right now. And I think that what I really would love to communicate at this juncture to just about anybody who's willing to listen, you know,
I'm kidding.
willingness to listen being the
Yeah.
operative phrase, is like be mindful of what you're creating. Like we're all conscious co-creators, whether we're aware of that or not. We can create from an unconscious place and then feel like a victim of our creation, or we can create from a conscious place and which requires us to be diligent and awake, which means we have to actually be discerning at pretty much all times. And then be careful about what stories you're telling and then what the stories you're sort of encouraging other people to tell. Because if you're part of a collective narrative, well, that just means a lot more people are telling that same story. It doesn't make it right. It just means a bunch of people are telling that particular story. And then they may feel right because a lot of people are telling that story, but that doesn't make it so. Just because somebody is telling a story doesn't make it true. It just means a bunch of people are telling that story. And then that's creating an outcome that we can all witness because we're conscious co-creators. And so whatever story you tell with about a lot of emotion and, together and validation with other people, that's going to create something, So it does work. But then you have to be willing to notice the mechanism. If you want to break free of it and actually like create something beautiful for yourself, you have to witness that that's what's happening and that the mechanism works no matter what story you're telling. So then the question becomes, what story do you want to tell? Like what outcome would you like to create with all your storytelling? What outcome would you like to see for the planet, for your family, for your loved ones, for yourself? And then start telling that story, which at first is going to be maybe at counter odds with other stories that are currently being shared. But then over the long term, that's the medicine, isn't it? Is being willing to be sovereign and telling the story that's going to create beauty rather than telling the story that's going to create some of the same stuff we've already been experiencing.
Well, and I think it's an important piece when you said to be willing to be sovereign. That's the first place to begin to tell the story, not even go to the other place and tell the story from the victim consciousness, because that means you're already out of your power. You've already given power over, and now that's already a narrative that's playing out that you don't have to, that's again being unconscious of the story that you're creating, and you're creating your reality based on what it is that you're speaking out, based on what it is that you're telling, the story that you said. And you can always rewrite the story, even in mid script, you can shift and change the story. One of the things I would like to talk about is, like, right now, the energy is such a time of uncertainty, right? So we're in such an uncertain time. There's so many unknowns, and there's that. And then there is that unknown, and then we talked about being in the flow. So I want to give an example of what was just going on for me in the last, I want to say, I don't know what's today, Tuesday. So maybe like since Saturday, from Saturday to Tuesday, of living in the uncertainty. Does that sound good? Like talking about it from an example point of view, and like bringing the in the flowness into the moments of all the uncertainty and being okay with that, right? So I'm now in Arizona, and I live in Washington State. And I was coming out here to Arizona to be at the place that I'm at right now, my girlfriend's house, who my girlfriend has a person that lives here that she cares for, who's 97 years old. And but the reason why I was coming here is because Diane's daughter is getting married. Okay. And so Diane needed somebody that she could trust that could be with Norma while she's going to go be with her daughter, watching her daughter get married, and that everything's going to be okay in that way, right? That was basically the whole point. So I told her that, and Norma is pretty self-sufficient. She just needs somebody here on the property, not to completely be by herself. And I said, hey, as long as I can work and do the things I'm doing online, I can do my podcast, I can work with my clients online, no problem. I'll come there and do it, right? So what ended up happening was, on Saturday, Norma had started having shortness of breath on Saturday. So they took her to the hospital. They admitted her. She was admitted. They gave her, of course, a test for you know what. And that was going to take 24 hours before we get the results, because basically I'm not going to come somewhere to a place where that's going to happen, and then Diane's not going to go to the wedding, and the whole thing. So that was already a question mark. So beginning on Saturday, from the time that she was admitted into the hospital, we were like not knowing. And so, but I'm still going along with packing. I'm still packing. I'm still getting everything ready. I'm still going along with the whole thing. But you just don't know if you're going to catch that flight. You just don't know. So basically, didn't even know I was going to catch the flight until Sunday at noon, when we got the results back that it's not what, the test is negative, meaning it's not COVID. Okay. So there's that. And the shortness of breath. Then they found out it was an ammonia instead. Okay. But basically didn't know I was going to be catching the flight until Sunday. So that was, but still went along with the whole story of I'm coming, and Diane's going to go and see her daughter get married, and, this whole thing. So then on Sunday, when we get that it's okay to come, now coming here now, Norma is still in the hospital, still as we speak. Diane just left for her daughter's wedding today. We really actually don't even know when she's being released, but I'm here. But this is what we mean by living in the flow and living with the uncertainty of, because we could have told all kinds of stories. We could have made up all kinds of scenarios. We could have done all kinds of things. But because she's conscious, I'm conscious, what outcome do we want? And that is that Norma's home safe, that I'm here, that Diane's over there getting her daughter married off, and that all is well. That's the outcome. So this is the flow we are being in, this energy. And you just don't know what's going to happen, because we still don't know, but here we are. So what do you think about that story?
Yeah, I think that story illustrates plenty of opportunities to have created some drama out of nothing, and luckily you were conscious enough to avoid that, by creating some more stories that provoked fear and anxiety and everything else. And that's, things are unexpected right now. And I think the reason why, for example, like the last 18 months, there's been like these information wars, right? So like, oh, that's not true. Oh, that is. Oh, this you can trust, and oh, you can't trust this. Oh, it's like there's so much competing information. Like pretty much what we've proven is that if you have a perspective, you can find a study to prove it. We've basically proven that, like if you have a perspective that you really believe, you can prove it now. You can go out and find somebody that's proven it with some kind of scientific study. So we've proven that you can prove it. That's basically it. But what we haven't done is proven like there's one truth or one story or one whatever. Like that hasn't been proven. There's a lot of competing perspectives on things still. And they're even more entrenched because they've got evidence to prove it now, right? So when you get evidence to prove something, that usually emboldens you to like really ram it home to somebody else and be like, listen, you idiot, how come you can't understand this? Because here's the evidence, So what we're really seeing is this is actually like at a bigger level, I think part of the big awakening process that we're going through on the planet, which is a fascinating way to do it. And I hadn't even anticipated this would be how it will be done, because it's kind of pretty genius, is to have exactly this, like to have the demonstration of how what you believe to be true can actually be proven through your scientific studies. Like you can prove it. So this gets back to the intention experiment. There was a book published quite a while ago, Lynn McTaggart, The Intention Experiment. She already showed everybody this. Okay. Yeah. So anybody who was actually listening and paying attention read that book and knew that you as a conscious creator can create whatever you desire based on your intention. You can create that thing. And you can run experiments to prove that not only is it effective in the here and now, but it's effective all over the whole planet all at once, because they actually took like pieces of plant, and separated them and put them in different parts of the world and ran an experiment on one piece of the plant. And then it showed up at the exact same time, at the same moment at the other plant. So it was like, wow, this works, So all we're doing is proving that we're conscious creators now, but people aren't totally getting that yet, because most people feel like they're the victim of their own circumstance. You know, most people on the planet are operating from reptilian brain and limbic brain. And in those brains, which are ancient brains, those are brains that didn't know what we're capable of. Like those were brains that were evolutionary brains, you know, based in survival. And most people are still living in those brains, even though the opportunity is to live in a brain that's actually, you know, the frontal cortex, which is our soul brain. So when we connect our soul brain with our hearts, which is our soul's compass, when we align those two places, we can be in the flow without being worried, like Kornelia and stuff, you know, your friend. You can be in the flow with no worry because you know, like, oh, I'm okay. I might have gotten in temporarily ungrounded. Okay, well, I recognize my nervous system's unbalanced. My reptilian brain got triggered. My limbic brain might have gotten triggered. I got some emotion. Okay, well, let me do my practices to return myself to a state of balance, get my heart open again, get my heart talking to my frontal cortex, get it quiet in my brain, and then, don't worry about that. Okay, great. That's the insight. Don't worry about that. I had something similar come up where I was supposed to be going to Mexico right as the outbreak was coming, you know, and everything was coming to, and everyone's like, oh, you can't travel out of the country and don't go to a third world country, because I was planning to go to Mexico. And I had everyone say, oh, you can't go to a third world country, that, you know, you'll definitely die there, you know, if you get COVID and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Well, but I had a sacred pilgrimage to take, and I was going to take it. And my teachers actually canceled it. But my husband and I were like, no, we feel called. Like, we know we can do this. We know we can do this. And that was the key differentiator. We knew we could do it. And so we took the plane, we went down there, we stayed near Teotihuacan. We stayed with a household of people who are also Toltec thinkers, meaning that they're artists of the dream of their own lives. So they're very aware that they're consciously creating their own dream of life. And we stayed with them. And nobody got sick. Everybody was fine. So we came home, all was well. Now, did I have fear leaving that morning to go to Mexico? Absolutely. My reptilian brain was like, what are you doing? You're putting yourself in jeopardy. Holy crap. Like, everyone's saying this is fearful and you're just like tra-la-lying down to Mexico. Are you crazy? You know, so like my brain was really like trying to protect me. But what happened was I moved through that fear, right? Like, and I moved through the fear. I knew I was having an emotional response. I regulated my system again, and then I muscle tested. Is this trip for my highest and best good? Yes. Well, if it's for my highest and best good, I'm going, even if my body's afraid, even if my mind is afraid. I'm going to step forward through that fear into the action. So, I mean, I think that's what we're all learning right now. And the more we can step out of the victim consciousness, the more we're going to find out something really freaking cool that's been happening this whole time, which is that we're all creating our realities.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yes, it is awesome. And that's why we are leading the way with this example.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it's done, because, you know, it doesn't mean that we don't have the fears. It doesn't mean that we don't have the same kind of opportunities for, you know, falling back down in the rabbit hole just like anybody else does. But we use the tools, and once you have the tools, and once you know, then you can move forward, you know, in a very, very focused and intentional way. The way I, you know, looked at this whole thing with me coming here was I saw that there were so many blocks that could have blocked, like, you know, not, you know, so many blocks in the way of coming. And basically, in my command of my reality, as the creator of my reality, that open all the gates, you know, if this trip is meant for me to be, open them all wide, easy flow, right? That's the thing. And so, and then I got here. And so that's why I know I'm supposed to be here, even in the midst of all these weird things and uncertainties and facing death, because there's a lot of death talk as well with all the conversations now everywhere, even when, you know, I had to look too, like, wow, I haven't been on a plane in a long time, you know, how is this going to be? And how are all these things, you know, like what is going to be the thing? So working through those fears and getting your mind back into your body back into an equilibrium state. It's a constant state of being in equilibrium, which then raises your immune system, where you're at peace, because you hold that in your body and in your bioenergy field, and you carry that with you. And that is what's changing the world, and that is what's creating the ripple, and that is the new earth.
That is. And, we've already, Masaru Emoto also, let's take that, right? Masaru Emoto did, water studies. He did studies of what happens when you place a fearful intention in some water and then freeze the molecule of it. What does it look like? And what happens when you place a loving intention in the molecule? Maybe you do some Ho'oponopono or something like that. So like even this vaccine, so it's not I'll just confess, it's not my preference to have this vaccine. I don't really desire this. I'm a person that is self-regulating. I turn to nature for all of my solutions, and I have been off pharmaceuticals for the last 10 years at least, right? So no pharmaceuticals entering my body for the last 10 years. So I prefer to keep it that way. That's just my preference. And as a person like that, you could imagine then I'm seeing this vaccine passport idea start to surface around, and I'm not really resonant with that idea. I'm actually like, that violates my sovereignty. That idea is not welcome for me. I'm a no on that one. Right? I'm like, nope, not for me. I don't like that idea.
X to
No.
that. It's like, nope,
X to that.
Yeah.
So that's just how I am. Now, anybody else can put that vaccine in their bodies if they want to, and that's just up to them. I don't stop anybody from doing anything. But what I want to say is that even as that perspective, I started getting kind of concerned. Like I was like, oh no, like now they're going to try to bully this whole thing into being. And I don't like this idea at all, and I'm starting to think like, how am I going to live on this planet if that's the next reality? And then I started asking myself in the last week, I posted some things to kind of like shake people up like, hey, this is actually bullying. It's not cool. I just tried to highlight some of the behaviors like that. This is not a sovereign way to be with other people. But then I started saying, well, am I giving too much power to this thing? Mm-hmm. Because Masaru Emoto has already shown us we can actually negate ill intent in anything with our prayers. Like he did the experiments with water. He showed us what happens when water is imbued with a negative intention, which I believe these vaccines could be perceived that way, could be construed that way. I know some people think they're really wonderful, other people don't. So depending on your belief system, kind of depends on how you're going to receive it, right? Yeah. So he's already shown us, though, that you can transform something by filling it up with love and by filling it up with Ho'oponopono and prayers and medicine. And it's in my tradition of training with the Four Winds Society from Alberto Villaldo, it was to illuminate, like we could illuminate our food. So we could like take a food that maybe is dead, the food like maybe it had pesticides in it, and then illuminate that food with our spiritual energy, and thus transforming that food into something viable and alive and good. So we can do the same thing with those vaccines, so it's kind of like a chess game. It's like the sorcery of this planet. It's like kind of asking you, where are you going to place your attention? Are you going to give it to the black wolf or the white wolf? Are you going to listen to this story or that story? Are you going to listen to the devil on your shoulder or the angel on your shoulder? Which one are you going to listen to, and where are you going to create from?
Which one
He's asking us.
Which one are you going to feed with your
energy?
Yeah, and you get to decide. And I think that right now the most important thing for people is to really look at what their core values are, and look at their core spiritual values. Where are they? And stand in that. And once you have those values clear, then make your decisions from there and really be at that, stand in that no matter what. Because the bottom line is, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to do any of these things, because these are all of the systems that are now crumbling and that are falling away, because we as a people before had given our power away to all of those systems that are not sustainable, certainly not the new earth human, certainly not the new earth. So, now all of this is happening, in my opinion, so that everyone can claim their autonomy, that they can claim their sovereignty, that they can claim their authority, and start taking their power back, and start taking their planet back. Start taking their planet back, because Source said, I'm taking my planet back. I'm taking my kingdom back. I'm taking my children back. I'm taking my house back. I'm taking my food back. I'm taking my abundance back. I'm taking it all back, because long enough has this spiritual warfare here been playing out for far too long. And it's time to restore this planet back to its original organic blueprint.
Yeah, organic, exactly, which is God, Source, Creator, Great Spirit, Divine Mother, the consciousness, the presence, the essence. And so it's like we're seeing the houses fall, right? Like, so all the places where people were controlled and subjugated, even if they did it sort of kind of willingly just because it made their lives seem to be easier, those things are all like crumbling right before your very eyes, because you're being asked, are you going to like, how much pain are you going to go through in order to not like have a conflict? I love Don Miguel Ruiz and his wisdom in the Toltec tradition. And he talks a lot about, people will tolerate abuse until it becomes more than the way that they abuse themselves. Mm. The moment that you are being abused more than you abuse yourself, you fight back and you say, no more, that's enough. I'm not doing that anymore. And you walk out of the relationship, or you leave, you just, you take care of yourself. And so it's curious to me to watch people. It's like, how much are you gonna, like, what is your depth of abuse? Like, how much are you gonna let yourself be abused by systems, people, intrusion, all kinds of things on the outside? How long are you gonna, like, how bad are you abusing yourself, I guess is what I'm asking. Are you realizing it yet? Because you'll tolerate a whole bunch of stuff just to avoid a conflict, right, Kornelia? Yeah. It's like, oh, amazing.
People, to avoid conflict, people just tolerate and let shit slide by, which is all energy leaks, because one leak adds up to the next leak, to the next leak, and to the next leak. Pretty soon you've got all these leaks in your field, and you've given your power away, and then you don't really stand for it. It's not solid, it's not sustainable, and then all kinds of things start happening. So I think the place for people to begin right now is really look at claiming their inner sovereignty, claiming their power back, and where do they stand in regards to this whole thing with this COVID situation? Because I foresee that we have to be the healthy ones. That is you, and that is me, and that is people like you and me that are really healthy in body, mind, and spirit. We're healthy. We're here to support the others that are not that healthy, right? That we're going to be supporting people that are like that. And we just all need to really work on where are we with all of it, and work on our own energy fields.
I want to say, like, how did I get healthy? Because I moved through the messy aspects that many people are faced with right now. Like, I moved through the aspects of like upholding my own truth, even when the rest of my family turned against me. Like think about that. The rest of my family, almost my children too, it almost went that far. Like, holding up what I knew to be true inside of myself based on my awakening process that I was going through, based on what I was learning, and extricating myself from the places where I would respond to guilting, shaming tactics, and that people would try to put me to change my position or to make me do something that was against my good. Like, I knew it wasn't for my good, but they wanted me to do it so I'd be part of that old system that the family operated on. And I just started saying no. So, like, I want to say I honor everybody who's, whoever's listening, wherever you are in that journey. It's not an easy journey, because it calls you forth. Like, God's first creator calls you forth to know your truth no matter what, and to have take no prisoners. Like, you are following the guidance. Like, I follow my guidance, even if it means someone's going to be pissed at me, even if it means somebody I really want to love me, it will walk away. I follow that guidance, even if I'm going to lose my money. I follow that guidance, even if I'm going to lose my job. I follow that guidance no matter what material thing I might lose, or thing on the material plane that I might lose. Following that guidance, I follow that guidance.
And that's actually the permission slip right there. That is a really beautiful example for everyone, because to follow your guidance no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what. And so that's why you're going to be absolutely 100% okay, better than okay, the best, because you follow that guidance. And you're going to follow that spirit without hesitation, and boom, and you're going to be 100% led and taken care of. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're doing that work. It's really exciting.
It's not easy, and it does get confusing along the way. For example, like, your heartstrings get pulled. Like, when my mom and my two sons came to me and really were like, because they all took the vaccine, and they were like, Mom, you know, we're really worried about you not having the vaccine. We're worried you're going to die, and we're going to like viral shed in your space, and then you're going to like die, and then we're going to feel guilty because we called you, like the whole conversation. You can imagine my heart was like, oh, you know, my heart was really like, oh, I don't want my sons to feel this way. Like it was really awful. And my mom, and then I got to feel, I was like, you know what? Here's what I'm taking away from this. You guys really love me.
That's beautiful.
And that's beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you for loving me that much. And I know that for me, I got to follow my higher guidance. And I ask every day because I know, like you said, we're in the flow. Things might change. Like my flow might change, and my source all of a sudden says, you know what? You got to take that vaccine. Who knows? I don't think that's going to happen. But if it did, you know, I would follow it still. You know, if it said now it's true, I would go follow that thing, even though I contradict myself, you know, going backwards with everything I said before. If it told me that and that was my guidance, I would do what my guidance said. So there's literally no wiggle room for the ego in this, like none.
Yeah, and that's actually what I had to do. That's a really good one that I was telling my friend Diane this. I said I had to actually write on a card the other day before I was leaving. I wrote a few simple words down so that in case the ego peeks out, that I will just reach into my purse and pull that card out and remember what I just wrote down. It's basically, we've talked about this. You know, it's kind of like, you know, having a conversation with your ego already. It's all good. We're all good. Everything's great. You know, we've got this handled. Don't worry about it. And then writing down what I said, so that basically then when the ego peeks out, then I can pull that out and look, we've talked about this. Do you remember? Boom. And then here's where it is. We were laughing about it because that's really, it's a strategy and it's a tool, and it happens, and the ego is afraid. And that is like, you know, the same way that your children were expressing their love for you and your mom. It's the same way with the ego, that I've been working with my ego in this way since my awakening journey. I've never shamed or made my ego wrong for trying to protect me and keep me safe. I've always asked for, I know that the game is changing and that you're being asked to step aside now, and the heart is going to take over. And I know that you're scared about that because your job has been to keep me safe and to make sure that everything is taken care of. But for the next 3 months, for the next 30 days, for the next 2 weeks, for the next, this in stages, you know. And so occasionally when the ego comes out in that way, it's like, yeah, I have to have a little, because, you know, in the beginning of the early days, the ego would have these temper tantrums and start screaming at me out of the top of my lungs about, what about me? What about me? What about me? You know? And so now we've certainly tamed that relationship, and it's, you know, in harmony. But occasionally when that fear does come out, and the ego is there and wants to take over, we have to remind, hey, look, we wrote this down. Remember, we had this talk.
Yeah, that's why it has everything to do with the nervous system and making sure you're balanced. I mean, grounding with the earth, that's why I teach that. I mean, because the more grounded you are with the earth, the more you're connected to that self that's bigger than your body, and your ego, your body feels safe because it's connected back with its source. Like your body has a source, it's called the earth, you know. Yeah. So like when you connect your body back to its mama, yeah, you can relax, you know, a lot better. That's why going in nature is such a beautiful thing. And you know, and I feel like this pandemic time and all the restrictions that people got placed on, and it's not bad that all happened, actually, because it puts stress on the system that most people have been living by. It puts so much stress on it that now it's fracturing and falling apart. And you want that. That's good. You know, that stress of falling apart, it's the doorway to the new. It's the doorway to that soul's journey, is on the other side of all of that chaos and dismantling. So it's not a bad thing, even though it looks like a hot mess.
Well, Kerri, can you imagine? I mean, look at how this happened. When you think about, like, in January of 2020 when Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn conjunction took place. You know, the astrologers were predicting it for a long, long time about
Yeah.
this was going to be the crack in the foundation, but nobody really knew what was going to happen, right? But what are the, who would have thought that the whole world was going to be asked to shut down and go internal and start looking at your own house and start looking at what is your relationship with your body? What is your relationship with God, source? What is your relationship with the world? Why are you here? You know, everyone,
At the
regardless,
same time.
everyone at the same time, regardless of what your title was, you know, whether you're from Hollywood, or it doesn't matter how much money you had, it doesn't matter what skin color you are, you know, everyone got the same call. And those of us that had already been practicing doing the internal work, for me, not much was changing in that sense, you know, because I was already doing that work. So for me, that part didn't change, because this was already a very active part of my life. You know,
Yeah,
that's
and it
how,
didn't really change my life. It
right?
didn't even change my trips because I went to Peru twice and Mexico twice during that time. So it didn't change my international travel. It didn't really change my life at all. I did
Wow.
do less fire walks. I mean, I usually do public fire walks, and I only did a few. And then I did stop my weekly drum circle, which was meeting in person, because, just out of respect, honestly, out of respect, because I'm not writing that story for myself. Let's just move back to the conscious co-creator. I don't write the story for myself that some little tiny virus is going to come and kill me. Like, I don't write that story. I'm neutral about it. I see it's happening out there. I witness that people are totally invested in this story, and it's actually starting to physically impact them, right? It has been for quite a while now. So I see people kind of continuing the storyline and really believing it. And it's actually having an impact, because why? Because your reticular activating system is totally focused on it. And as a conscious co-creator, you're creating that reality for yourself. And, you can keep doing that or change it. So
Yeah.
I just have never been invested in that. Like,
Yeah.
what I did when it came up was I was definitely feeling fear at first. Like I said, I had my body reacts the same way everybody else's does. I got afraid, and I knew I had to rebalance. And so I went outside, sat on my front lawn like I always do. My neighbors think I'm weird. Sat on my front lawn, grounded, sat there for a good long time, meditated. I did so much meditation during COVID. It was crazy. It was like the best thing ever. But I did so much meditation, I got still. And then I asked the question of Mother Earth, am I meant to get this virus? And every single time I ask the question, she says no. Okay. And I tell her, if you need me to have it, I'll do it if I need it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to run away from it. But
Yeah.
she's like, no, you don't need it. I've never gotten the message I need it so far
Yeah.
up until now. So I don't live in fear of it, because I've already been told by my source that I don't need this. So
Yeah.
I don't live by it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't mean it won't happen. I don't have the arrogance to say that I'm just,
Yeah. No.
I'm not arrogant about it. I'm asking the question. I want to point that out.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful, the way that you just talked about it. So that's your example of that. And the way that it happened for me when that was announced, that, here's COVID now. And when that was all first announced, right away, I was, within my entire being, I checked in and said, no, this actually, here's where it was at for me. That where it was at for me is that I did not need the lesson.
Yeah.
Basically, I didn't need the lesson. So for me, I mean, I've overcome a very traumatic, lots of things that I've overcome in my life that most people would incarnate for many, many lives in order to transmute and transcend the things that I've transcended. So this was not a lesson that I needed for learning to go within and heal, because I've already cleared so many things. And I had asked, is this, no, it was like, no, there was not 1 ounce of my being, not one area where I felt like, okay, cool. So then it was like, then what I said, okay, cool. Then my body will not be a host for this experience. And that's not I'm not going to be allowing this visitor into my space, energetic space, not with thought, not with consciousness, nothing. It's just like, no, I'm not hosting this here.
Yeah, not hosting it. I think the important thing is to realize exactly what you just said, which is that the planet is so incredibly brilliant that there's no medicine given that's not needed. So any experience you have, you need. And any experience you don't need, you don't have. That's kind of how it works. And she can maintain, when I say she, Mother Earth, can maintain everyone's curriculum all at the same time and match everybody up, giving them exactly what they need all at the same time while other people are having completely different experiences. And all of that can happen all at the same time. So there isn't, there's not a one size fits all. It's a very personalized relationship and curriculum. So that, I think, is what people don't understand about our host planet. Like, this planet is capable of doing that. Isn't that a miracle? Isn't that amazing? I find it awe-inspiring that this planet can actually coordinate lessons amongst people, like, and give each person in the exchange medicine that they each need, and nobody has to have anything that's not needed. Like, that's just that's incredible to me.
Yeah, and
Wow.
there was an example of that happening recently in this woman's house. She's the medicine woman in the house. Her daughter, 19, was going to a concert, came home, brought it home, got sick, and then the daughter went into the room and got quarantined and all that. Dad got it. So the daughter had it, dad got it. So now medicine woman mom was like, well, what's happening with me? Like, am I going to, what's the deal here? And basically she's like, no, I'm pulling in out all my tools. I've got it. I got my essential oils. I've got all my things. I've got all my tools. And she's like, nope. So, and then basically, went to the daughter and said, here, started caring for the daughter, and then went to the husband. And then basically, the daughter was kind of like on her own, didn't want mom to bother her or whatever. Daughter was like, I'll sleep this off. I'm good. I know what to do. And then the husband, she was asking, should I sleep in his room? Can I sleep in his bed? Can I sleep in the bed? And she even slept in the bed. She never got sick, took care of both her family members in the same house, when this disease came to the house, but it didn't affect this person because on some level, she didn't need that lesson.
Yeah, and it's, and the other thing about this, Stephanie, is that, Kornelia, is that people are not going to be able to there's no boxes, okay? Which is driving the egoic personality consciousness crazy all over the planet, because everybody wants the boxes that say, this means you're going to get it. Check, check, check. This means you're not going to get it. Check, check. No, it's a soul level curriculum, and there's no box for that. Okay, that's between you and your maker. Like, there isn't an external box to show you whether you're going to get it or you're not going to get it, or how bad it's going to be, if you're going to survive or whatever. It's a soul box. It is not some trait, physically.
And Kerri, so you said it's between you and your maker, and then if we're going to even take it even one step further, and that is the acknowledgement that you are the maker.
Yeah, you are. You're the creator of your own personality experience.
So because we're not speaking to your ego right now, we're speaking to your truth.
Yeah.
And you are the creator. So you are the maker.
Exactly.
You are making your reality. You are making your life. You're making your way. You're pulling it in.
And you're free to do that. And you signed up for a curriculum with this planet. And the planet does hold you accountable to your agreements. Like, if you said you wanted to learn a certain thing, well, then you're going to learn it.
Yes.
In this space, because you wanted to, because you said you wanted to. So that's the other place I get to is like, well, if I'm experiencing something, it's because I want to. I chose it.
Yes. And what if a lot of people that, what if, like, you being a medicine woman yourself and being a healer, you know that you align with the knowing that your body has the ability to self regenerate and self heal. You have those beliefs, you have that knowing, you know that. And so what if the people that are getting had gotten this lesson, this COVID experience and whatnot, and what if through that experience they discovered that their body has the ability to self regenerate and self heal? And how empowering is that going to be for their life moving forward in any other conditions that they may have, in things that need to be healed, right?
Yeah, which is, and this is a tricky conversation to have with people who really are invested in I don't know, the matrix. I'm not invested in it. Maybe somebody got inspired in some lab and that's part of the divine too. I mean, I'm willing to admit that all of that's part of the divine. I think that our bodies, we're not deficient, but we're born into this system that immediately gives us the idea that we're deficient. Because the first thing is you pop out of the womb into the world and they say, you need this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot, this shot, that you need all this stuff just to survive this planet. And so it's like, wow, do I really need all that stuff to survive this planet? Or, so it's just a question I have. I don't have the answer, but I just think it's interesting.
That's good. That's a really good, let that land. Let that land. That's really good, because it starts right away from there. And that's one part. And then there's the organic birth, where that narrative is also playing out, and where the baby's born in water and the woman is having an orgasm while she's giving birth. That's happening.
I didn't experience that. I wanted to this time, but I didn't. I had a different experience. I got to experience cesarean.
Yeah.
So I think that, we signed up for all these experiences. And I think what we need to also do is get out of this binary right, wrong, bad, good thinking. Like that's just, it's kind of like, I want to say like bananas are really good, right? But I ate too many bananas during my pregnancy. And one day I just started throwing up when I had a banana because my body was like, that's enough banana. Like that's too much banana. We don't need all that banana. And every time then I would taste the banana when I was pregnant, I hated banana. I had to stop eating it, right? So even something good, you would say that's good.
That's
but it
true.
all has its balance, its ratio, and its
too much sunshine.
intention.
Too much sunshine is also, not the best, not good for you. Too much, everything in moderation in that way. But we're coming close to the hour, and I just want to acknowledge and thank you so much for coming on today, Kerri.
Yeah, good discussion.
And I want us to do it again. So I know I'm going to come to your show. We're going to do it on your podcast, and then maybe you can come back and maybe we can meet once a month or something and keep this ascension conversation going. Anytime that I talk about this consciousness and ascending and living in the new earth, this is always something I'm passionate about, very dedicated, very committed to this path, and I'm really excited. You mentioned fire walking, so this is something that you do. Why don't you give a little bit more information to the audience about where they can check out your information about, what you do and your fire walking? I think I've walked on coals before, so I know that fire walk, and it's no joke. It's definitely not for the faint at heart. People can definitely get their feet burned and end up in the emergency room with 3rd-degree burns. Or
did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did not.
I have never had that happen yet with anybody.
Oh, really? So,
yeah,
we did. I don't know, but we did that whole ceremony of blessing the fire for like 4 hours long of, we were in that ceremonial energy. And then when it was time to, walk across the 12-foot bed of hot coals.
That's a long bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I lead fire walks primarily because it's an excellent tool for helping you to see where you're believing something in totality that is only maybe partially true. So for example, fire burns, we start learning that's one of the first agreements we learn when we're little kids. Parents are trying to keep us safe, keep us away from the stove, keep us away from the fire. And so that gets like ingrained in your brain, right? And you think that's absolutely always true. It's not exactly always true. So, so that's what you learn at the fire walk. When you walk across the fire and you don't get burned, it's like, oh, that just destroyed so many ideas I had in my head right there, because now I wonder if other things I'm thinking aren't true as well. And that opens you up to the curiosity and the big mystery. So
Yeah.
I lead people into the mystery. I lead people into the mystery of this planet and let them walk the mystery, the beauty path, the mystery path, along with so many generations before of people who were also curious and wanted to interface directly, with the consciousness of this planet and learn and grow and evolve. And I do it by way of teaching the path of the Mesa Carrier, which is an Incan Caro tradition from the Sacred Valley in Peru. So I do that. And then I also help people awaken that mother goddess within and heal the mother wound. We have this disconnection from our planet, and we have all these, generations of problems with women, back through the matriarchal figures. And this work is geared towards healing that. So for anybody who's, resonating with that, either one of those, anything I just said, you can find out more about me and book a discovery call at kerrihummingbird.com. That's kerrihummingbird.com, Kerri hummingbird.com. And if you want my game, you can do hummingbird.com, kerrihummingbird.com/play. And you can download the Love Mastery game for free. It's a Oracle.
Fun.
It's a fun game. Yeah.
Okay. Did you design that game yourself?
I did. It's not, I'm an artist. Eventually it'll be like an Oracle card deck and I'll have pretty pictures and all that. Right now it's just a free download. And you can get a 12-sided dice and just roll the dice, play the game. And it's like an oracle, except it doesn't tell you what's going to happen. It just gives you more insight into what's the soul's curriculum underlying the thing you're learning right now. Like maybe you're learning about compassion. Maybe you're learning about patience, and those are all lessons we learn here in Earth School, and could be something you're learning there. So it just gives you insight into like, why is this thing happening to me that I don't want?
Yeah, I love that. I think we could have asked that question today, with everything that we were talking about. But I definitely, in the future, I definitely would love to, go to Peru with you. I'd love to be led by someone that knows what they're doing, and then I can just tag along and
Relax.
Totally.
I help a lot of leaders like you, people that help others, like you nurturing other people. You need a space to like relax and let your hair down too.
Yeah. And somebody I trust and somebody I trust that I can let my hair down and have a good time. So
get in the flow.
I certainly enjoyed this conversation with you today. We had an amazing connection from the moment we met, and that's why we came today. And I'm so glad that we did.
Me too. I enjoy knowing you. I know we'll have many conversations to come.
Yes. And everyone, you can find me at KorneliaStephanie.com, and you can also email me at radio@KorneliaStephanie.com and let me know what it is that you enjoyed about today's show. What was it that really gave you that aha, that exact thing that you needed to hear that supported you on your path, on your ascension path and your journey. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in, everyone. We'll see you all again next time. Bye, Kerri.
Bye.